join in. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. Today's webinar is about writing the college essay with Mandy Loh from the University of California, Merced. I'm going to be introducing Education USA Pakistan briefly, after which we will begin today's webinar. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. I hope that everybody can see my screen. Okay. So what is Education USA? I don't know why my screen. Okay, perfect. So Education USA is known as USEFP, which is short States Education Foundation in Pakistan. And what we do is that we provide advising in each city with personalized guidance. So we have advising centers in Lahore, Karachi, and Islamabad. Our flagship program is the Fulbright program, and I am a Fulbright alumna myself. I did my master's in international development studies from the George Washington University from 2023 to 2025. My program was international development. So, what is Education USA? Education USA is part of the US Department of State, and we're present pretty much anywhere and everywhere that there is a US embassy. We provide you with accurate, current, and comprehensive information, and we also offer resources, guidance, and advice on how to find the best fit university for yourself. So, what kind of services do we provide? We provide one-on-one advising. It can be either virtual or you can also come by in our office. We also provide free in-house virtual sessions like the one that we're having right now. And we provide free workshops for the GRE, SAT, and TOEFL, any and all standardized tests that you might need to take to pursue your graduate or undergraduate education in the United States. If you visit our office, you can also access our resource library. So, in addition to advising centers in Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, we also have Lincoln Corners throughout the country. We have about 5 Lincoln Corners in Punjab. We have one in Lahore, which is in the Qaid Azam Library. We have one in Sargodha, Faisalabad, Multan, and Bihari. And you can pretty much come to these Lincoln Corners, visit, and have access to the resources there. So you can register for our free education advising services by going to our website. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. We post all webinar recordings on our YouTube page. If you have any questions, feel free to drop an email at lahore@educationusa.org. You can also follow the US consulate in Lahore because we do have events with them regularly. You can follow them on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook if you need any information about the visa. You can go to the US Embassy website, which is usembassy.gov. And yeah, I'll hand it over to Mandy now. I'll stop sharing my screen. Okay. I don't think I was sharing my screen. Could you guys see my screen earlier? Mandy, were you able to see my screen earlier? Sorry?
We saw it for a while and then
Okay.
we lost it midway.
Okay. I'll just share my screen again, so that everybody can see what I was sort of talking about. So yeah, I walked you guys through all of this about Education USA, and I just want to show you guys our Lincoln Corners. Their email addresses in Lahore, Sargodha, Faisalabad, Multan, and Bihari. Happy to drop the emails in the chat box if anybody needs them. And yeah, I want to show you this. You can go to educationusa.pk/register for our free advising services. Drop us an email at lahore@educationusa.org and follow us on social media at EducationUSA Pakistan. And yeah, these are just handles, social media handle of the Lahore consulate, the US consulate in Lahore, Instagram, X, and Facebook. And yeah, I think that's all that I needed to show you guys. Over to you, Mandy. I'll mute my.
Thank you. Perfect. Let me share my screen. Okay. All right, and welcome, and thank you everyone for joining me on today's session on writing your college essay. Perfect, and welcome and thank you again for joining me. My name is Mandy Loh, and I am from the University of California, Merced, and I am with the college, with the undergraduate admissions and with international affairs as well, and I am the Senior Assistant Director of International Admissions. I've been with the University of California for about 11 years now. I read about 1,500 applications every year, and so that said, I read also a lot of your college essays. So today's session is going to be quite geared toward the University of California's college application and college essays, and so what we call mostly the personal insight questions. So I do encourage you to drop in your Q&A or your questions in the chat or the Q&A box today. So, and I'll try to get your questions answered at the end of today's workshop. We will have some samples today to show you so that you have sort of an idea of what we are looking for when we review your application, right? So I do read quite a lot of essays myself every year. So I can tell you what is a good essay we're looking at and what is sort of a not a good essay to write when we're reading your college application. And this is again from a University of California application perspective, sort of not quite different from the common application perspective, right? So it's quite different when you're applying to the UCS opposed to when you're applying to the rest of the US application. And so this is from that perspective. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so overview of the PIQs, overview of the personal insight question. You'll hear me say PIQs a lot throughout today's college workshop and today's this application workshop. So what is PIQ? PIQ stands for personal insight question, right? So what are the PIQs used for and what is PIQs? PIQs is really used for sort of like clarification and context throughout your college application. We use it mostly, sort of like an opportunity for you to share additional context and detailed information that we can't find really elsewhere throughout your University of California application, including sort of like your circumstances and experiences throughout your high school career and your academic as sort of your personal experiences. We use the personal insight question through for you as your opportunity to tell us your story in your own words, right? So it's very personal, it's your insight, and it's your own story. So don't think of it as a creative writing. So it's very different from, the personal statement and your personal essay, right? It's used to assist us as a reader, admission reader, in understanding the context of your own personal, academic, and extracurricular accomplishment to provide sort of like a further depth and insight as far as details. It's very important, and we don't really compare students throughout the UC system, the University of California, and we look at individual experiences in your environment through which you grew up, right? In that context. Okay, so it's a very important consideration because in the University of California system, we don't apply interviews throughout your application. Okay, so in this application, we do use 8 different questions to select students, and you do choose any 4 out of the 8 questions to answer. Every question do hold equal weight, meaning you can choose any 4 out of the 8, and they're actually equal value throughout the application. So it doesn't matter which one you choose, they're exactly the same. Some of them could be quite similar, right? So I'll show you the questions, and they haven't changed very much throughout the years. So, if you try to look at them now and you want to draft them for your college application for next year, for fall of 2027, they're probably not going to change, right? So if you wanted to start drafting them now, this next fall's application is going to open from August 1st. These are the questions. There are 8 questions. Again, you can choose any 4 out of the 8 if you're a first year student, meaning you're just coming out of high school, you're graduating from 12th grade this year. You can choose any 4 out of the 8 to answer. The first question is going to ask you about your leadership skills. You don't have to define leadership, right? We don't need to know what leadership is. You need to tell us what your leadership skills are. That's what we really want to know, right? Tell us your experience with leadership, what kind of leadership skills you have. It does not have to be the captain of your basketball team. It does not have to be the president of you don't have to be the treasurer of um class the class, what do you call it? The class leader or the class president of your classroom, right? It doesn't have to be that kind of leader necessarily. It could be where you're the older sibling in your family and you help take care of your younger siblings. That kind of leadership experience. It doesn't have to be the typical kind of leadership experience, right? So talk about those experiences, and we want to know what you want to share. So it has to be personal, right? If you try to put one of these questions into ChatGPT, for example, nothing is going to be personal. So we want details. Be as specific as possible and give us examples. Okay, the second one is about creativity. So you can tell us any kind of creativity, skills that you have. It does not have to be in art. It does not have to be in music. Think outside of the box. Okay. Um, think different conventional or unconventional skills that you have. Think about any time where there was a problem and you took on a unconventional, skill to solve that problem, and what was the outcome. And tell us details of why you did that, you know, what you did. Okay. The third question is about your greatest talent or skill and how you develop that over time. So the keyword here is about your greatest talent or skill. So here in this question, you want to tell us if this came naturally or if it developed over time. You weren't born with this talent or skill, but it could be something that you develop over time. Again, remember, this is something that you did during high school. So from 9th to 12th grade, right? It wasn't something that um, you had when you were 6 years old, when you learned piano at 6 years old, but when you were born with a talent and you developed that during high school, and tell us what you did during that period of time. Okay. Question number 4 is a significant educational opportunity or educational barrier. This question, the biggest cliche I would say that I read was that students talk about their language skill. So if you want to talk about a language skill or language barrier, that's fine, but tell us how you overcame that, right? Remember the question, the keyword here is about the barrier, but remember when you talk about a significant barrier here, talk about how you overcame that educational barrier, okay? The key is always go back to the question and tell us how you address that question. Ask yourself when you finish writing your essay or your college question, did I answer what the question is asking me? Okay, was I able to address what the admission reader wants or expected of me? Have I answered the question fully, right? All of these tips are actually online, right? It's not a guessing game, right? We're not asking you to guess what we want to see. We're telling you all of these is exactly what we want to read. So things like all of these tips are actually available online and they're all published, right? So at the end of this workshop, I actually also have a QR code that you can scan. So you can actually find this whole tip sheet available online where we actually have all these details of how you should be guiding yourself when you're writing these college essays. Okay, so I'll have that later for you. Okay, number five, you're actually talking about the significant challenge. So look at number five and then go back and look at number four, right? Number four is talking about your educational barrier. Number five is talking about your significant challenge. So remember at the start, I said it could be very similar how some of these questions are structured. So if you're using the same example, you're actually repeating yourself. Okay, so try not to use the same example and try not to talk about the same things because the limit with every question is 350 words. So if you're using the same example, you're actually going to waste word count and you're repeating yourself. You're talking about the same thing. You're not helping yourself. Okay, so please don't repeat and please don't talk about the same things. You're not helping yourself. Okay, so number five is talking about the significant challenge that you faced and how you overcame that significant challenge. But this is talking about your academics, right? Number four is an educational barrier. And so you could talk about things that how the community organization has helped you or your college coursework. Number five is talking about your significant challenge. It could be outside of academic, it could be you know, academic, it could be non-academic. Number four has to be an educational barrier only. Okay, number five could be your life challenge as well. Number six is talking about an academic subject that has inspired you and how that has interested you inside and outside of your classroom. Okay. Why is this important to you and what has sparked your desire to learn? You're not limiting yourself to traditional academic subjects. I've seen students talking about non-traditional subject areas, things that interested them in poetry, AP research, right? So things that could be non-traditional, things that interested you. You could talk about your passion, your hobby, art. That is perfectly fine. Okay, number seven is about things that you've done to your community to make them a better place. Tell us about the problem. What is the problem? What is the solution? What you did. So the whole process. The process itself is important. We want to know what you did throughout the process. Remember, it's not an AI written, so it's not very general. We need details, we need specifics. The more examples you give us, the better it is, right? So AI ChatGPT cannot give us examples and specifics, which is why we need you to give us more context. If you participated in a certain club in school, only you can give us the name of that club, right? I don't want a generic name. I want you to give us the specific name of the club you participated in. So give me that detail. Okay, so if you did that in school, tell me what it is. Okay, so provide that example in here and tell us what that thought process is. The last question, this is more sort of an open-ended question where if you've already talked about everything you want to discuss, number eight, when you talk about everything else you've already put in, what do you think what do you believe makes you a strong candidate for the admission to the University of California? Look at your transcript, discuss your resume and your daily routine. If you feel that there are more things that you want to elaborate on, and more details that you want to discuss that reflects who you are, you can put that in this question, okay? But remember, this question is asking about you as a strong candidate. and not unsolicited information about the University of California system. Okay, the entire UC is one application, meaning 9 campuses were all on one application. Okay, so we all read the same application, we all look at the same essays. So if you're writing one application, you're talking about the UC, you're all talking about one system. So please do not name one specific UC on your college application. Don't write about UCLA. If you really want to go to UCLA, please don't name them on your college application. Okay, so this is about yourself, not about UCLA, not about Berkeley, or not about the research within the UC. So please don't think about, oh, I visited UCLA's campus when I was 15 years old during a visit to California with my family on a vacation. I really love the campus, how beautiful it is, so I inspired to come to UCLA, right? We read that every year, so please don't do that. Think about this as a chance to highlight yourself, to talk about the rest of the accomplishments that you have. Okay, so write that in this question here. Okay, beyond that, we do have another additional comment section where you can actually detail about uh, more of your thought process, where you can provide us additional comments on things that you want to discuss about your academics or about your extracurricular activity. Um, do not put in an additional PIQ response in here, okay? Do not put in extra links to your LinkedIn account or your resume. Don't upload additional things that we haven't asked for, okay? We don't click on any portfolios, resumes, YouTube channels, or things like that, okay? So um, don't put any short story or poems either to showcase your creativity. Okay, the UC don't look at things like that. So please don't attach any of these details or even an SAT or ACT score because we don't review all of these additional details or even a counselor's recommendation. Okay, if you put any of that, it will just tell us that you can't follow instructions. So we don't want that. So what is additional comments used for? Examples of some of these additional comments can include, your academics that is like an unusual rating scale that you want to clarify, right? So let's say if your high school has changed, um, a grading, for example, and you want us to clarify that this grade or this grading has changed, or you wanted to clarify like an omission of a course or a lack of, like APs or lack of um, selection of coursework, for example, or you wanted to discuss why you chose a certain class over a different class, or a certain track over a different track, for example. Or if your high school has certain restrictions on like a certain class enrollment, and that you wanted to discuss, or if you change a high school, or if you move from one high school to another high school, right? So these are things that you want to discuss. Or if you had a medical issue and you miss a certain class and then you had a gap year or a gap semester, things like that are very important to discuss, right? So you need to just put that on the application and let us know, right? Or things that make you ineligible to apply, or you took a gap year after graduating from high school, please put that on the application and let us know. Okay, these are some examples that students have put on their application as an additional comment to provide context. Okay, so you can read this through as an example of what is suitable as an additional comment. Okay, after the academic history section. So there are two areas where you can put in. This is after the academic history section. Okay, this is on your transcript, which is about your grading and about your school, about your principal, or about your teachers. And this is after the extracurricular, which is after the personal insight question area. So you can put things about your clubs, your extracurricular, things about your family circumstances, things that you want to discuss about um Okay, these are examples that you can read through, okay, of what's suitable to put in. Okay, so with that, let me show you some examples of essays from students, okay? And then read through them, and I want you to tell me if you think this is a thumbs up, a good example of what the student is writing after all that we've discussed, okay? Like I said, are they detailed? Did they show you good examples of specifics? Are they personal? Okay, these are important. Did they provide me context of the student's background? Did they showcase what the student is telling us without being too general? Did they answer the question, right? Did they tell me what the student is answering? Did they tell me what the question is asking for? Okay, so these are important things to discuss. Or is it a thumbs down? Did they not answer the question at all, right? Is it not detailed? So I'll tell you the question. Okay, read PIQ example number 1, and this is addressing question 5 of the PIQ. Question 5 asks for describe the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps you have taken to overcome the challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? Okay, again. Number 5 is about describing the most significant challenge you have faced and the steps that you have taken to overcome this challenge. How has this challenge affected your academic achievement? Okay, so I'll give you 2 minutes to read through. Tell me if it's a thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay, and then we'll go through them together and we'll look at it and say why. 2 minutes. Okay, is this a good response or is this a bad response? Okay, I don't think you can all put that in there. I don't know if you can, yeah, but maybe you can just tell yourself, right? Tell yourself it's good or bad. Okay, so we will discuss and you can see if your answer is correct or wrong. So the answer is this is actually a good response. It's actually value added. Why? Because the student actually did discuss what is relevant to their high school experience, right? Although it's not creatively written, it is actually very detailed, meaning the students did give us lots of examples. They did actually provided things like summer search, family night. These are important details that we want to see. Remember, I said I want names of clubs, I want names of details. The student talked about how it is relevant to their high school experience, which I said I want throughout their high school, 9 to 12, right? I want how the student actually described the challenge impacted them, how they answered the question. And the question actually asks for how have this impacted your academic achievement? And so they did actually answer the question, which is very important, right? And so this actually addressed the question and is talking about the challenge where the student actually addressed that. Here, when they talked about their English skill, they actually talked about how they overcame it. Okay, this is a good value-added response, even though they did not use a lot of big words. That's not what the University of California is asking for. Remember, it is not a test of your English. We do not need creative writing, okay? We just want you to be able to talk about your personal background and be able to tell us and answer the question. Okay. Question, PIQ example number 2, question number 6. And so PIQ example number 2 is discussing question 6, which is think about an academic subject that inspires you and describe how you have furthered this interest inside and outside of the classroom. Okay, read this example and tell me again what you think of this response. Okay, the question is, think about an academic subject that inspires you. Describe how you have furthered this interest inside and outside of the classroom. Again, 2 minutes to read and tell me what you think of this response. All right. Okay, so what do y'all think of this question? Is this a good or bad response? If you all think this is a good response, think twice. This is actually a lack of details, a missed opportunity, poor response. All right, why is that? Let's see. A good response? A poor response? Okay, someone said good, someone said poor in the chat. Okay. The response isn't what the question asked at all. It's vague. Okay, good. Some of you said that. Well done. It's very vague, right? It's just about the environment, not even asks about a specific subject, just the environment. Some of them you can argue that it's about the environment, could be a subject, or recycling could be a subject, right? But it actually is not personal at all, right? I got educated about the environment a lot, but was it personal? Did the student talk about themselves? Not really, right? So the student could actually give us more details about, why this was their favorite subject instead of talking more about recycling, more about the environment. I don't really need to know that, right? So look at that. Like if the student had not talked about the tires, plastics, catastrophe, about seriously harming the environment, about their friends, about their family, and more so about themselves or less about the trash on the environment and making a big difference, blah blah blah, preserving the environment, and more personal, which is what we are looking for. Remember, I said it's personal. Then this could be a good writing, right? So again, because this wasn't personal, the student talked a lot about helping the environment, um, again, this was about the subject, but bring it back to the question where it actually asked you about how you have furthered your interest, which is about yourself inside and outside of the classroom and about your inspiration. Okay, so that is the key, not about everyone else and about the environment and all of that. So I need details about yourself and how what you did and about your whole process. Okay, so this is a poor response. You didn't really answer the question. So missed opportunity, thumbs down. Okay, next. PIQ example number 3. This is about this is on question number 8. And remember, question 8 is that open sort of response on the University of California, and not about the University of California. Remember, this is about what you believe makes you a strong candidate for admission to the University of California. So the question is, beyond what has already been shared on the application, what do you believe makes you a strong candidate for admission to the University of California? Okay, so read this 2 minutes. Again, beyond what has already been shared in your application, what do you believe makes you a strong candidate for admission to the University of California? Okay, tell me if you think, again, this is a good response or poor response. What do you all think about this one? Poor, a good response. They answer the question at all on what makes them a strong candidate? Yes or no? Poor response. She goes in depth, but also doesn't specify like a certain class or program, community, and the environment not specialized to the UC. You don't have to be specialized to the UC. It's asking about yourself. Um, it's about admission to the UC, what makes yourself a strong candidate. But this question is not personal, right? It's very general. And the student actually did talked a lot about the UC and it talked up the UC and it makes the UC sound really good. The long standing admiration for the UC and why they respected the UC's mission, the UC's research, and they did not address the question really. So good job on telling me why, right? Well done. It's not personal at all, and it's really about the prestige of the UC, which I mentioned you don't have to tell us because we already know, right? We're working in the UC. The admission readers know all about the UC, right? And that's why we work there, right? Really. But we want to know about you. So don't focus on the UC mission, the UC's research. We want to know about you. And this essay sounds really good and really well polished. Why? Because it's written using generative AI. It's what ChatGPT is AI. So it's very generic. Nothing is personal at all. So that's why it looks all really good, right? Um, Nothing is personal. So this is a tricky one. Remember, you need to tell us details about yourself and tell us what makes you a strong candidate, but not why you think the UC is so great, right? Again, we already know all about the University of California. Okay, last one. Let's do this. PIQ example number 4. If you think this is fun, let's see if you get this last question. Okay, question number 3. This is on what would you say is your greatest talent or skill? How have you developed and demonstrated that talent over time? So if you're struggling to see what kind of talent or skill would work, remember I said it does not have to be a traditional kind of talent or skill. Okay, any kind of talent, background, skill, any kind would work, right? So this sort of gives you an idea of what kind of talent or skill could be and what we're looking for. So let me know if you think this is a good example or a poor one. And then when you're done reading, tell me if this you think is a good or poor response. And then again, 2 minutes, let me know. And then we can go over some tips. Okay, this one's pretty straightforward, right? It's quite easy, I think. What do y'all think? Last one. Yes or no? Good? That? I think this one's pretty straightforward. Lots of details, lots of examples, very specific, right? Even though it's unconventional, it's very personal. Yes, very in-depth. Student gave her talent. Yes, good job. Experience and how she improved. Overall, good. Great. I like how you all evaluated the student. Well done. And the student actually did her own background, the environment she grew up in, right? And sort of like give us an insight into how her background, how she lived and her involvement and her skill in her environment context, which is exactly how we want students to write. And so she went beyond just stating her skills and gave us a lot of examples of that. Okay, so um, I hope these examples helped you to tell and let you know what we are exactly looking for. And so this workshop is helps give you an idea of that all of those things that we talked about and gives you an idea of all of those examples. Okay, so tips and resources for you to share. Again, use your own voice, natural voice and writing style. We don't need big words. We don't need you to have a thesaurus, fancy style, creative writing. Please don't quote any um, poets, Nobel Prize winners. We just want you. We don't need you to talk about your family, we don't need you to talk about your friends and all of that, unless you bring it back to yourself and make sure you're referring back to the things that you did, your process, your high school, your environment, your background. Okay, right? Directly and literally meaning you're answering the question that you're asked, not a creative writing style. That's not what we're looking for. Okay. It's quite different again, like what I said, from the Common App, which is what you'll use to apply to the rest of the US universities. Okay. The University of California writing style is actually pretty unique because it's called the personal insight question and not the personal statement or personal essay. So your biggest piece of takeaway from today's workshop is that it's actually personal. It's a personal insight question and not an essay. Write in stages and don't put them all on the application directly because you're going to lose everything that you're writing. So draft them, edit as you like, and then get feedback. Okay, there's no right or wrong answer when you're writing your personal insight question. This is a tip sheet that I was talking about. You want to scan this QR code to get that detailed writing that I was talking about. So if you want how to do the step-by-step that we talked about at the start with the 8 questions, this is that QR code where you can scan and you will be able to get the guide to how to answer all of those questions that we discussed at the start. Okay, so scan this right now if you want to get that tip sheet. And then this is my contact information if you want to just take a picture, as well as our social media for you to follow. UC Merced is one of the very, very few University of California that offers a very generous scholarship for international students to study in the US. And so every year we offer a merit-based international student scholarship of $25,000 for international students with a 3.25 GPA guaranteed. You don't have to apply for it as long as you apply to the University of California and you're admitted from high school with a GPA of 3.25 or higher, you are automatically awarded $25,000 every year. In your second year, you can apply for additional $5,000 to $10,000 of additional scholarship. So it's up to $35,000 from year 2 onwards. In your first year, $25,000. Year 2 onwards, $35,000, up to $35,000 of international student scholarship, right? So these are all merit based. So it's based on your GPA, it's based on your results from high school. So this is my contact information. If you're interested, you can email me, reach out to me on WhatsApp, or make an appointment with me on Calendly. If you have questions, I think we have about 10 minutes. Feel free to put them in the chat and I can answer them for you right now. So let me know what question you have and I can answer them for you. Okay, let's see. Khadija, you asked if UC doesn't require SAT. That's correct. All of the campuses don't look at SAT or ACT test scores when considering first-year students for admission. So it's not required during the admission process, not for scholarships either. Okay, so there are other things that we do consider, like your GPA, your course rigor, extracurricular activities, leadership, your personal insight question response, right? So all of that will count, but not the SAT or ACT at all. Okay. Let's see. If you write the answers to the questions, can send them to me by email. Can you help us to rate them and improve? That's a great question. So I unfortunately wouldn't be able to because it is a conflict of interest in a way because we can't take a look at individual students' application before we start reviewing them. Um, if I were to, edit, review them, in a way, yeah, like I said, it's a conflict of interest. So you can take a look at the tip sheet and have the guide to see if you answer all of those questions, um, and see if you have, provided a good response to those yourself. And also maybe see if your school teacher or your counselor in your school can help provide you with some feedback, or your family and friends. That would be the best way to start. If you want, I can give you, send you other resources or tips from the University of California. We have plenty of resources online that can help provide you with more guide to the PIQs. I have a simple question. If the university asks about why to join, then I think the ultimate response will be generic. So is it fine to add generic details? We don't really have a question about why you want to join the university. If you look at 8 of our PIQ response, or like 8 of our questions, there isn't one specific question, right? The only one that is more of that why you want to join is, what do you think makes you a strong candidate for the University of California, right? And it's not even asking about why you want to join the UC, because again, like I said, we already know about the University of California. So we want to ask about your background, so not so much about the university. You don't have to provide us any details about the university, and you don't have to talk about the university at all. So nothing about research on the university or mission of the university. So please don't tell us anything about that, because again, we already know. So don't need to go into details there. Okay. Anavia, you asked about UC for economics or business, your IBTP, and taking math AISL, the lowest math. Will I be eligible for econs or business? That's a good question. So some of us in the UC system are less selective compared to the other UC. So for example, in Merced, we don't require students to take a higher level math. The lowest math SL AI is okay for any of the majors like econs and business, right? So if you're taking SL Math AI, that's okay. So we don't require HL or selective math. UCLA, Berkeley, San Diego, certain more competitive University of California might require students to complete like a higher level math for IB students. And because they're more competitive, they could be a little more selective. And more students apply to those University of California campuses, so they can be more selective, right? So you could still be eligible, but you might not be a competitive student. What matters more, GRE or GPA? For undergraduate students, no GRE required, no GMAT required, no SAT or ACT required. If you're a graduate student, you have to look at the requirements of your graduate campus or college or department to see if GRE or GMAT is a requirement. They could both matter, GRE and GPA. The UCs offer biomedical engineering or not? Absolutely. Most of our campuses offers. So does UC Merced, biomedical engineering? Yes. I have a bit visual impairment that can tell that in easy my positive and negative experience. I'm not quite sure what that question is, Hassan. You might want to rephrase your question. Um, what about A-level grades? What are the required grades? A-level, we absolutely accept them. We look at IGCSE or your GCSE grades in your 10th grade as well. So that is also required, and also A-level. A-level, a minimum of 3 A-level subjects, 3 A-level exams, and 3 A-level minimum passing grades. So all C or higher is required. So that's the minimum. So the more competitive you are, the better you will be as a candidate. So minimum 3C or higher for A-level. And then Zoya, prerequisites for bachelor's in global health. So global health, pre-health, those are pre-health track. Prerequisites, I'll say like depends on the track or the curriculum you're in. If you're A-level, you get 3 A-level exams. High school students, I'll say your high school curriculum, we evaluate you for the curriculum that you're in. Minimum GPA for international students is a 3.4 or higher. So 3.4 would be like a B plus or higher grade from school. Okay, in the chat, Zohab, you asked about fully funded scholarships. For University of California, unfortunately, because we are a public institution in the state of California, unfortunately, we don't provide fully funded tuition for international students. So that is not available. The scholarships that we do have for international students that I mentioned, $25,000 a year is the highest amount in the University of California system, for international students. Some of the campuses, the more competitive ones, don't provide international students scholarship at all. And so because Merced is a newer UC campus and we're more open to international students currently. And so right now we're providing one of the highest amount of international student scholarship, but that's only about 30 to 40% of your tuition. You still need to come up with the rest of your tuition money plus living expenses. And so you do need to think about how to fund, your studies while you're here in the University of California. Again, we are a public institution, so, you know, full funded scholarships, unfortunately, is not available at this time. How is UC for economics or business? We already answered that question. 3.29 GPA in MS program for PhD, that I'm not sure. You have to check with departments for graduate programs because every graduate program is slightly different. And also for every program. So that is very graduate dependent for graduate programs. Is not like undergraduate programs where they're all going to be the same requirement for all majors. Graduate program depends on the department or depends on the graduate program that you're looking for. Same for graduate assistantship. You need to look at the program that you're applying to. Extracurricular, absolutely. You're talking about the extracurricular activity that you participated um, in your personal insight question. I know it is not really offered in school or the region that you might come from, but if you can try to participate in some of them or even your hobby, what you like to do outside of school, that could be, something that you talk about on your application. What about IBDP grades? That is something that we look at as well, absolutely. Yeah, so it's not about the final IBDP grades, right? It's the regular grades in your high school that we do look at. And so the final grades from your diploma is for you to transfer those credits. We look at your regular transcript, which are the grades from your high school. So from 9 to 12. And so the grades which are on your transcript are the grades that we will use when we consider your application. So on a VIA regularly, you should be getting grades 5 or higher. So 5 would be a B for IB students, 6 and 7 would be an A for IB students. Okay, and so you should be aiming to get grades of 5 or higher regularly from your high school. Okay. PhD English, again, graduate program, you need to reach out to the departments directly. I can't really talk much about graduate programs. They are very specific to departments. And so it could be very variant depending on what the department looks for in terms of GPA, in terms of funding assistantships, and GMAT GRE requirements. It all depends on the majors for graduate students. Okay, and then last question, um, last two questions. The recording, Education USA can provide that for the recording today, and then Merced LLM program, we don't have that. During the degree, facilitate students seeking internships or work experience. Absolutely. Merced is only about 2 hours away from Silicon Valley and San Francisco, San Jose. So we do have lots of internship partnerships. within the Silicon Valley companies. So, companies like Tesla, Google, Meta, Boeing, you know, NVIDIA, these are all companies that will come to UC Merced to recruit students directly, as well as students do have opportunities to do internships, work experience, Netflix, all of that in that area. And so internships, work experience, absolutely. As well as OPT opportunity, right, after graduating. Need-based assistantship for low experience students. Um, any aid, financial aid, no, we don't have that for students. Unfortunately, international students don't qualify for financial aid. Only the international student scholarship that we do provide, um, merit-based that we do have, and that's the 25,000. If you have other questions, feel free to reach out. I know we're at time today, and I don't want to go over time. So thank you so much again, everyone, for participating in our webinar. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me, email, WhatsApp, or my Calendly appointment link. Thank you for participating, and thank you, Education USA, for your time today and letting me present the workshop. Thank you. I appreciate everyone for your time today.
Thank you, Mandy. Thank you so much, and I hope
Have a
that
good
we
day
continue having webinars in the
and good
future.
night.
Have a great day. Bye.